Welcome to the end of 2025. It's been a great year. It was very, very difficult for a very long time for me. I started the year with no work lined up, as I often do, unfortunately. And the work with my previous clients had dried up a lot, and the winter was not kind to me in terms of the amount of work that I had coming in. And so I don't know how I got by. I was scraping by on fumes, barely able to pay my bills. My daughter's in daycare, and daycare in the States is incredibly expensive, particularly here. I could own another house for what I pay for daycare. But if I don't keep my daughter in daycare, there's no time to do the work. And so I had to find a way to make that work. When I look back on what I accomplished this year, the biggest thing is that I managed to pay my bills all year long. I drummed up a lot more work, and I feel really proud of the work that I did to accomplish that. I reached out to a ton of people. I pivoted at the start of the year. Going into the winter maybe of last year, I was really excited about doing a lot of bigger architecture and builder photography projects, like really high budget projects that I was really excited about. And I thought for sure that I was like finally getting a break in my business, and didn't pan out like that. Early in the year, I had a bunch of projects cancel. When I had several projects on the books, and then Trump announced all of the tariffs, and then several clients were like, yeah, we're not going to do this project right now. So it put, economic uncertainty causes a lot of people to put a hold on extraneous spending. And marketing is very important, but when people get scared, they're like, I got to hoard my acorns. And only if you have a lot to spare are you like, who is it that talks about how, I don't know. Some investors talk about how when the market's down, that's the time to buy, and when people are scared, that's the time to move. And when you've got the resources to do that, great, you do it. But for most people who are just getting by, that's not the case, So anyway, a lot of projects dried up. And so I was like, what am I going to do now? I always like to think that like architecture and real estate are like separate things, and that there's a point when you like stop shooting real estate photography and now you're like officially an architecture photographer. I don't know that really happens. I look up at the person that I learned architecture photography from, Mike Kelly, and he still shoots listings for real estate agents. They pay his architecture day rate of like $5,000+ a day, and he shoots architectural photos for them. And so it's different when they're hiring you for the high-end architectural work, and it's still for a listing. It just happens to be for like a $40+ million house, in his case. And so, it was foolish of me to think like, okay, I don't want to shoot real estate anymore, and I want to shoot only architecture, which I like the idea of, but it's more like I want to shoot a certain style of image. And if there are real estate agents that will pay me to make that, great. That's what I want. And I'm starting to get there a little bit. Not at the start of the year. At the start of the year, I was like, I need any work I can get. And for the first part of the year, I was very fortunate to have I think a lot of the work that I did early in the year was from June Homes. And it was just like an apartment they're decent, decent apartments that I was shooting for like $100 to $200, and I would shoot a couple of those a day. But that wasn't every day. That was like once a week I would shoot a couple of them or something. And it was enough to get me by. I would squeak by for quite a while. And it wasn't until I reached out to a lot of people and kept trying to find people to work with that things started to happen. I'm looking at my list of projects that I did this year, and I went through, this was a funny thing. I'm getting all of the end of year newsletters, or at least I did over the past 2 weeks or so. And there was one that I really liked from the landscape, ASLA, I think is the name of it, which is like the Landscape Society. And I really liked their presentation. So I kind of mimicked that, and I spent like 2 days writing down all the things that I did this year. And I wanted to make a newsletter kind of like that, but then when my wife brought up that like maybe it's not going to be that interesting if I list every single project that I worked on. So good point on her. She's an excellent editor, and I'm like, yeah, it's not very interesting. But I could give you a couple of the highlights. I did write down that I shot over 35,000 photos across like all of the things, personal projects and client projects that I did. And that's just from my camera and my drone. That doesn't count anything that I shot on my camera because I don't have a tally of that. I could probably find it somewhere. I shot over 40 different client projects this year, and that doesn't include a lot of the apartments that I was just talking about because I didn't count those. Because it was too much to go through. I wanted to, but I didn't get around to it. But it's 40 other projects that I did that I was pretty excited about. But as I looked through the list, it isn't until May that things started to pick up with me doing more like larger projects that paid more than like $100 or $200 a piece. And that was a result of me reaching out to a friend that I used to work with at Nooklin. She was a real estate agent, and she moved to upstate New York, and now she works at Upstate Curious. And Upstate Curious is a team under Compass that has a really interesting approach to how they market properties. It's very design forward, and their clientele are like Brooklyn expats, basically. So the woman that runs it, Megan, is like a ex-marketing person. I mean, she still is, but, just for this instead of whatever marketing career she had before this. She's very good at creating this certain aesthetic with their team, which is almost its own real estate company. And I was really excited to start shooting for them because the style of imagery that they produce is like up my alley. It's very editorial, design forward. They appreciate some dark and moody a lot more than typical real estate agent tends to. And so it gave me a lot of latitude to shoot the kind of images that I wanted to shoot. And still, with some of the people, I got a little bit of pushback and they wanted me to brighten the images up, a little bit, but I still got to make some more of the images that I like. And the pay is like very good for the kind of stuff that I'm shooting, like really good rates for houses that are under $1 million. And so, yeah, around May, that started to pick up and I started to shoot stuff for them and ended up shooting for several different agents at their firm over the year. Another interesting project that came up was a real estate agent down in Longport, New Jersey, had this wild house. It was like this, I guess you could call it a mansion. It was huge, very, very big house. It was right on Atlantic Avenue, and I like to call it the Tommy Bahama house because there was this like jungle theme inside, and every room in the house had like a different theme to it from all the like stuff that they had collected over the years. It is wild. It would have made an amazing bed and breakfast or hotel or something, but they won't allow it to be a commercial property, that township or whatever, which is a bummer because it would be awesome. I hate to think that somebody's gonna buy it and completely renovate it into something else, but that's what's gonna have to happen. But it was a fun place to shoot because it is so different from the stuff that I shoot normally. The more modern houses or places that are empty, and like, I don't know if you've seen my wardrobe over the years. I haven't been very active on YouTube, so the people that follow me here probably, you're mostly new, you don't know my history that much. But I was a big fan of Tommy Bahama's clothing because I discovered that silk is what you want to wear when it's really, really hot outside. And when I lived in New York City, I would be out on the move a lot. And so on a blazing hot day in the city, you want the best clothes you can to keep you cool. If you're going to be out and about, silk is the thing. You can get it at Tommy Bahama. And most people associate Tommy Bahama with like dad shirts, like the, like oversized camp shirts or whatever. And like they got that. But the location in New York City has a lot more like trim fit, the stylish clothing, and so you can actually get some pretty nice stuff there. This is not sponsored by Tommy Bahama, but I'd take it if it was. So for a while, my entire wardrobe was that, and I really like it. So it's fun to shoot that stuff because I have a connection to it. So that was a really fun shoot. That was really exciting. I one day when I was in Princeton, I walked into a bunch of brokerages, and finally I found one that was kind of on the up and up, and they ended up working with me for a couple of projects, and they loved my work. I sat in on a meeting where he was like, "This is art," and the people that inquired on this house were like more blown away by the photos of the house than the house, and in a good way. And that felt really, really good. And so we ended up shooting a couple more projects together, which was really nice. And we had talked back and forth about me like coming on to be like their in-house photographer, but they ended up going with somebody else who is more organized than I am in a like got the production hammered out. Whereas like I sat down with him and he's like, "You were an artist." And he was like, "If it wasn't photography, you'd be doing some other art." And I love that. And I would love to have you shoot some of the nicest stuff that I have. But right now I need something that's like, he needs a photo mill, you know? And I understand that a lot of real estate stuff, they just need a photo mill. And it's not a perfect fit for me, you know? Like I've debated about building that kind of business you've seen my work probably. And you know that art and mood and light and atmosphere is what it's all about. And I take my time to let the light develop on my shoots, and I explore the property and I revisit shots over and over again because I want to create something that has an emotional impact, that's lasting, that kind of matters, you know, and is beautiful and like arresting. And that's a really good fit for architecture, and it's a good fit for some real estate, but it's not a good fit for the stuff that just needs to turn and move, you know, and that stuff exists, you know, and I get that. And, you know, part of me in the back of my head is like, should I run a photo mill where I send out other photographers to go and do the thing and just kind of review the work and do the business part of it? I've thought about it. Is it the best thing for me to do given my talents? Maybe. Like I could run that kind of business, I'm sure, and I'm sure I would make a pretty good living doing it. But wouldn't I rather go out and make beautiful imagery for people that really appreciate art? Yes, you know, certainly. So better that I focus my time on that. There's another shoot for Upstate Curious that I really loved. So a lot of these, they're all in the Hudson Valley, and I live several hours away from the Hudson Valley now. I live in like central Jersey, right on the border of Pennsylvania. And so getting to the upstate, the Hudson Valley is like a 2 to 3 hour drive, depending on where the place is. And there was this one place that was in Berryville, New York, which is right on the river, kind of up towards the Delaware Water Gap area. And the drive there was, it was so gorgeous. It was so nice. And it was the middle of summer. This was June 28th that I shot this place. And I shot so many photos on the way up and the way back. So we're going to get into this later because right now I'm talking all about my client work for the year. But I've got some like brewing personal projects, and I'll just talk about it right now. One of them is called Road Warrior. And I do a lot of these drives that are like 2 to 3 hours long, and I tend to see stuff that catches my eye on the way. So I'll take photos and shoot little video clips and stuff like that. And this is all stuff that I should have been posting and sharing throughout the year. And I didn't because I was busy with other stuff. And like, I could have made time for it. I could have watched less TV or something, you know, gotten a little less sleep, gotten up earlier. I could have been more dedicated to producing stuff the way that I am now. But the block that I always have is on post-production. So doing this right now, sitting down, talking to the camera, love it. absolutely love this part. No problem shooting tons of stuff. And I've got so much footage on my hard drive that I've just like never turned into videos. So many photos that I have never posted. And what is that? You know, is it a fear of judgment? Is it a fear of how the things will be received? I mean, probably. But what's the point? Like, if I'm going to press the shutter, I should be willing to share the photo, or at least have it work towards something. And I feel like all of them are. I feel like they're all maybe first drafts of me working on a message or a vision. And, you know, if that's what they are, then good. But I think they could be something if I just sat down and worked on them. And that's something that I would like to do when I can make the time for it, when I'm willing to make the time for it. And I will do an endeavor to start sharing more of that, because when I look back at the year at all of the stuff that I did and all the stuff that I made, if I just shared more of it, I'm sure I would be further along than I am now. But like I said earlier, I was scrambling to make money and pay my bills. I still am, unfortunately. I'm starting to get like a little bit of space, just a little bit of space. And when I can create a little more space consistently so that I can consistently work on these things, that's when I can start working on more of these like personal projects. So another shoot that kind of came out of nowhere was a management company for a apartment building in Fort Greene. That's Brooklyn. Wanted me to come do some photos and videos. And she said on the phone who referred them to me, and I did not understand the name that she said. She said like Indy German, and I was like, I do not know an Indy German, but I'll take it. And so I ended up shooting that for them, and that was fun. That was probably one of the first like video projects that I did. So this was like a management company, and I shot some like sort of walkthrough videos of two apartments and then one of the amenities in the building, being the mail room and the gym and the bicycle room and the lobby and the lounge and the business center and the rooftop. And that was fun. That was nice. I should really like, it's not a work of art. I'm not thrilled with how it came out, but it's good enough that it should be on my portfolio, and I should be trying to get more work with it. Because I'd like to make more like that. I want to do more video. I certainly do. The next project is a house in Newburgh for Stephen Gray, which was like a pretty normal little renovated row house. It was just like an apartment. It was a 2-floor apartment. And when I got there and saw it, I was like, are they really going to pay me this much money to shoot this thing? And I like, in the back of my mind, I was like, I'm going to send this invoice and they're going to be like, oh no, we're only paying X for this. But I didn't say anything. I didn't ask. I was just like, all right, they said they'll pay me this to shoot it, and I'll shoot it. And if they pay me, great, you know? And they did. And then, you know, I still put my heart into it. I still made the best images that I could make to help it sell. And we even got some cool drone shots in the rain of, you know, scenes of the house amid the water in Newburgh. Newburgh it's a funny place because it's very depressed economically. And there's a lot of like rundown area, but the site on the river is spectacular. There is a view looking down the river south, like towards New York City, where there's like the mountains on both sides of the river come together, and oh my God, it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. And I've got some pictures and videos of that somewhere that unfortunately I will not be showing you in this video because, as I have talked about a million times, post-production is not my friend. And if this video is going to get done, I can't go hunting for photos and videos to add on in the edit. I gotta add this audio to this if it records. It's backup audio right here. and then press publish. And that's the only way you're going to get to see this video. So I can't be giving myself extra work to do in post. That's got to be one day when I can pay an editor to do that stuff. That's when you get the extra goodies. So that was the Newberg house. Then one of the most significant projects of the year comes after that. My longtime client in Ottawa, Canada, Orr of Neotech Developments, brought me back up for, I think this is actually only the second shoot that we've done. The other shoot was a pretty big one. I've told the story about Orr before, where my wife and I went to Ottawa for a silly reason. She had Hilton hotel points, and we lived in upstate New York, and we were like, where can we go to a Hilton? Because there aren't that many of them, because they're mostly in major cities. And we're like, we're not going to go stay in New York City. That's silly, because we lived there and we could drive there. We lived there previously and we could drive there. It'd be silly to go stay in a hotel there. But she's like, there's one in Ottawa. Do you want to go to Ottawa? And we're like, sure, let's go there. And so I emailed a bunch of people. This is many years ago, like 2018, 2019, something. And I emailed a bunch of people and I was like, hey, I'm going to be in Ottawa. Do you want to meet up? I'm going to show you my portfolio. And Orr was like, yeah, I'd love to. And so I met Orr at a coffee shop and I showed him my print portfolio that I had made of my work at that time, which I would love to show you right now. But again, we're not going to spend the time on that right now. And he poured over that, man. He loved like looking really close. I remember there was one photo of a house with a living room with a TV in it, and he looked in real close to make sure that he could read the little Samsung logo on the TV, and he like really appreciated that I had that level of like crisp detail in the photo where you could read the label of the TV that was like way back there. Orr was really cool. He drove me around to look at some of his houses. 5 years later, he called me and was like, hey, I want to bring you up to shoot some houses. And so I went up and shot those houses, and then I think it was 2 years later, would be last year, and that was when he brought me back up to shoot a really significant project that he'd worked on. So we shot a couple more photos of one of the houses that I'd shot previously because the homeowners were ready to sell it, and I don't think I actually got him those photos, so I need to work on that. But the big project was a house called Twin Peaks, which when I was up there 3 years ago or whenever it was, I shot the house under construction. So I went into a house that was just, what's the post and beam, whatever the term is for it was just the framing. It was just framed out. And I explored that and shot it on a rainy day. And being in that neighborhood and shooting that house literally made me cry, because I thought about how I spent my childhood driving around neighborhoods looking at nice houses, and I spent my very young years on job sites of my dad building houses. And so I remember one of the visceral memories that I have was my dad was building a house that was like a couple blocks away from my middle school. And so after I got out of school, I would walk the couple of blocks and like sit on a bucket in this dusty construction site with, rednecks smoking cigarettes and, them playing whatever music, I don't know, rock and roll that my dad was into, and them doing, whatever sheetrock, sanding, messy construction work. And I would just be like, I'm going to sit here and hang out and do my homework or whatever. And maybe there were other job sites that I hung out on like that, but that's the one that really sticks out in my memory. And being in this house that was just framed out was such a joy to me. And thinking about how my life has become the thing that I used to do for fun. Every time that I went to a new city or neighborhood or something as a like teenager in early 20s, I would be like, let me find the nice neighborhood and drive around and look at the nice houses. I loved doing that. And now that's my job. My job is drive to the nicest neighborhood in the city and shoot the nicest house. And I get to see the inside of it, and I get to interact with all of these crazy like smart home systems, and I get to see all these incredible materials and stuff. And like, you know, on some of them, the construction's good, and on some of them, the construction is amazing. And that is like, it's a real joy for me, given what I just told you about my father, who was like a master craftsman, who like precision and quality craftsmanship. And like, my mom tells me that we come from a family of artists, that my dad's family, side of the family, were artists, and that my dad in particular was just like a master at mathematics. And he was like, the precision of his work and his calculations was incredible. And that like, he wasn't as good at like linguistics and things, and that was always a thing that like he felt really insecure about. Like, he had like, I think, an 8th grade education, and he felt like he couldn't really like speak and articulate. But when it came to his mastery of geometry, incredible, like world class. And so now, when every time I go in a house and I see some shoddy craftsmanship, I'm like, Dad wouldn't have stood for it. Wouldn't have happened. And unfortunately, that's the case in my house. I bought a house where the investor chose like the cheapest people to work on it, and nothing's right, you know? So one day I hope to do my father proud and like fix the trim, you know, and retile the stuff where the tile is crooked and things like that. So, you know, I do really attribute my eye for precision and my attention to detail. I think I got those from my father, and the affinity for art I apparently got from his side of the family. And so, you know, I appreciate that. And anyway, so being in that construction site was a wonder for me. And I posted about this on my blog. And so if I remember, I'll put a link to that in the blog. If not, you can search the blog on my website for construction. I think that's one of the keywords in it, if you want to go see that. And I even recorded a video of me talking about this and how sentimental and meaningful it was for me. And I cried. I cried during that video. And I had turned off this microphone during that. And so I have that footage with no audio, none. And I was devastated when I saw that happened. And I am still in the learning process with my videos of making sure that I have at least 2 audio sources and that I make sure that it's running. You see my eye right now, I'm looking up at the receiver and making sure that it's on and receiving the audio. And so I'm recording this with this microphone right here. This is my second audio. Third audio is hopefully on the camera. And so that's 3 audio sources here. I'm trying to correct my mistakes because it really, really, really hurt that I lost the audio on that. And I do believe that the day's coming real soon where I can have some AI read my lips and give me the audio back. But is it gonna get the intonation, the sound of me like crying, right? And like talking through my crying? Maybe. We'll see. Anyway, so that was a few years ago. This year, the house is done. And it was coming up on award season, and my client is really keen on winning the awards. It's the same that I've discovered with a lot of the architecture clients, pretty much all of them that I work with, that they want to win awards to get recognized and get new business and, you know, feel good, get the ego boost. For him, he said it's a feather in his cap to get to win the awards, and he doesn't really need it, but he would like to. And lately, they've been doing more, I think, municipal projects, like building multifamily housing and stuff, which tends to not be as beautiful and interesting and exotic as the single family residential. But this was a really nice single family residential project. And so I'm going to Canada, and this is June. So there's a thing. I'm going to tell you about this in a second. I go to the airport, Newark, and I always have a struggle at the airport getting my Profoto flash through there, because when they scan it in the x-ray, they're like, what the hell is this? They're like, look at this on the x-ray. There's this like big thing that's inside this. I don't know about this. And they call like the bomb squad in there to come look at it. And they look at it and they're like, I don't know. Like, it seems like consumer electronics. Like, we'll let it pass. And it's been the same guy, like, the couple of times that it's happened. I really want them to just be like, can I get a video of you saying, hey, this is fine? So the next time that you walk out here, I can be like, hey, this is you from 2 years ago looking at this exact same thing. It's the same thing. Can I please go? But eventually they let me pass. So here's the thing. The Profoto, the B10 Plus at least, has a huge bank of capacitors in the middle of it. And so when it goes through an x-ray and they see this like huge heavy thing in the center, they're like, what the mess is that? And I'm like, it's a big bank of capacitors, because the thing's got to dump 500 watt seconds of light into the xenon tube, and to make a whole lot of light. That's what it does. And so like, they get it, you know, and some people at TSA are like, yeah, I know what a monolight is, whatever, you know, but most people know. And anyway, I got through, but there's a video on, I don't know if it's Wendover, talks about how Newark is like one of the worst sighted airports on the planet, because where it is between like the Kittatinny Mountains and the Atlantic Ocean causes a bunch of turbulence in the wind there. So it gets a ton of thunderstorms in the summer. And so the first time that I tried to go to Ottawa, and this time, my flight got canceled because of thunderstorms. And so I have a lot of like photos and videos of the thunderstorms there. And so my lesson that I've learned is that the next time that Orr calls me to come to Canada in the middle of the summer, because it's always the middle of the summer that he's calling me. I mean, it's only happened twice, but I'm assuming the next time will also be in the summer. I'm flying out of Philadelphia or JFK or Newark, or I mean, not Newark, it's just anything other than Newark. But the lesson that I've learned, because everybody was upset, you know, there are people that had been in Newark had been delayed for days, and the lesson is Newark gets a lot of thunderstorms in the summer. Do not fly out of Newark in the summer. That's my piece of advice to you. If you need to fly out of Newark in the summer, don't do it. Just go to Philadelphia, go to New York City, fly out either of those. They're a lot less prone to thunderstorms. So this project, let's get back to that. I went to Ottawa to shoot this house that previously wasn't done, but now is. I did not bring my drone because, and I didn't bring my flash the second day. Because I was like, I'm not going back through TSA and dealing with this again. I'm just not going to bring it. I'm not going to use it. And I didn't bring my drone because I didn't want to deal with like trouble at customs with it. And I didn't know if there would be. I just didn't want to deal with it. And then I massively regretted that decision, because we got out to the house and there were wildflowers and overgrowth like 6 feet high, all on a hill up to the house. And I was like, I need to take a photo of the front of the house. And so I'm going to have to like carry a ladder and wade through this stuff to take these photos. And there are a lot of photos that we took of the front of the house where I was like out there at twilight getting like a bazillion mosquito bites. And I was wearing like the off deep woods, like the nastiest bug spray that you can get that was, you know, definitely filled with bad chemicals, and still just murdered by mosquitoes. But I got the shot. I did. And I would, you know, I'd do it again. I would if I could wear body armor. But no, next time I will bring a drone, and I will never fly without a drone again, because I never want to have a repeat of that. But this house was, it was so gorgeous. The the design and the detailing and the materials. And even the renders for it were gorgeous, and it came out so close to the renders, which is always a joy to see. My client and his team that worked on it made a hell of a house here. It is so nice. And they the homeowners are Chinese, and so they imported a lot of really nice precision design Chinese manufactured architectural elements in it that my clients were like, damn, these are nice. And it was really cool to see. And so I created some photos that I'm really excited about. And I haven't shared any of those yet because my clients were kind of waiting until they saw if they won the awards. They did. They won 2 out of the 4 categories. So that is a huge win for the year. That, it's my goal for my imagery to make my clients money or achieve their goals. And in this case, my client wanted to win some awards, and they won 2 out of 4 of the awards that they submitted for. And I'm pretty sure that last time we won several of the award categories that they submitted for. So it's going really good for them and my photos. And if we can carry that over to all my other clients, then bam, we're doing it right. And so that shoot was awesome, and I still need to finish those pictures up. There are a lot of people, potential licensees of those photos, and I'm really dragging the ball on that because for licensing photos, you really want to get those out as quick as possible because especially for products in the house, you want those products to be relevant. And so I'm really behind on that, and I need to do that because that's potential thousands of dollars that I'm sitting on when I'm just if somebody calls me tomorrow and is like, we've got to shoot for a couple $100, I'm like, well, I'm going to do that because I need the money right now, which is not the place that I want to be in. I want to be in the let me license these photos place. But, there's an argument that Tom Harris, who's an architectural photographer, made, who's I don't spend any time trying to license my photos because I would much rather focus on the work that I'm doing for my client and do another client project than spend time trying to license images. And really there's more money to be made in doing another client project than there is in licensing a photo of a stove to Sub-Zero, so there's an argument to be made for that for sure. Anyway, that shoot ruled. I will get around to sending all those photos out to the right people. It's unfortunate that I didn't do that before the end of the year because they're in a new budget quarter or budget cycle and they might have to wait for months. Because I remember one client that I reached out into in January to license photos, and they're like, we really want this photo. We got to wait until the start of Q3. And I hope that's not the case, but it probably will be. And that's on me for not getting on it fast enough. And, there's a part of me that's I need to hire somebody to handle this stuff because then the money would actually get made. We'll get there, I'd love an AI agent, but I could hire somebody a VA, and I just haven't gotten around to figuring that stuff out. And that goes back to the realty thing where he chose to work with the guy that had the systems in place already, that already had editors and already had VAs and already had a business built around it. And it's I have been foolish and dragged my feet on making this more of a business and less of a me being an artist thing. And I have to work on that if I want to do more business. And that's a lot of the stuff that I'm planning to talk here on the YouTube about as I work my way through it and grow up. Let's see what else. I shot his little beach cottage that he built outside of Ottawa there. So that was a fun little thing, a little aside that we did there. I've shot a couple of times at Ye Tavern, which is a restaurant inside of the Graduate Hotel, which is a new hotel in Princeton, New York, which is pretty close to here. And I met the general manager of that hotel through a funny circumstance. I was out scouting a house. I saw a house on the side of the road and I pulled over to take a picture of it. And I was going to put a letter in the mailbox to say hey, I want to shoot your house. And he pulled over and he was like, hey, what are you doing here? And so I explained it to him, and then like the homeowner of the house called him because like they saw me on the camera and they must have seen him outside, and they were not pleased that I was there. But he was really cool. And he was like, well, if you like architecture and design, you should stop by the hotel. So says the manager of the hotel. And I was like, all right, dude, you got it. I'll stop by. And I stopped by and it was super nice. And I talked to him a few more times and eventually started shooting for them. And it's been like fairly small, like real estate or food photography shoots, but it's been the only food photography work that I've done this year. So it's been fun. I've talked about this a lot, but food photography is a lot different than architecture and real estate photography in that, so like architecture photography tends to be kind of slow and intentional and considered and really following the light or building it or like studying the scene. And then real estate photography is a little bit faster paced than that, of like, let me kind of move through here and get these images quickly. Food photography for me is like very fast paced. It's very energetic. It's very like, we've got 1 minute to shoot this dish before it starts looking dead on the plate, you know? So let's get our lighting in place. Let's get our props set up. Let's get the shot done, you know? And so there's a lot of energy and movement in it. And I really like that about it. At least the kind of on location food photography that I do. You know, studio food photography is a bit different, which is why I don't like it as much. And I have only done a few shoots like that this year, but I've enjoyed every one of them a lot. And so there's a really funny story of how that came to be. Let's see. We shot another shoot for the real estate company in Princeton. That was a really cool one where I did a video for them because they wanted me to do videos for all of them. And the agent couldn't be there. So I always had kind of like free reign to make whatever video I wanted. And I did a walkthrough with the camera and I did some drone shots afterwards. And then I was like, it'd be kind of fun if I made like a narration over this, that I wanted to lean towards the videos that were like the local project, where it's like very architectural and there's kind of like a voice introducing the place. And so I made a video like that. The client, like my agent, loved it, but the house sold in like 2 days. And so he's just like, I don't really need it. And so I spent some more time like fiddling around with it and making it more of like an art project for me. And so I finished that off, and that's available for you to watch if you want. I think I have it like unlisted on this channel. So I'll delist it after, or I'll make it public after this video, and then you can check it out. It's called Addison, I think. I don't know what I named it. Addison Court was the address. Let's see. I shot another house in Kingston. We're getting into 9 September now. And this was for somebody that I used to be a real estate agent in New York City. And when I first started, I worked at Rapid Realty. And I worked somebody that worked at the same the same part of it that I did, because it's like a bunch of franchises, and within my group she worked at the Bushwick office, Kristen, and eventually she also joined the Upstate Curious team, found that I was one of their approved photographers, and had me come up and shoot this place. And so this was a really fun one where there was this the woman that runs all of their Upstate Curious owns a bunch of Airbnbs, and I think they're called like Curious Guest Houses or something. I'm not sure what the name is. She was there because this house belonged to a friend of hers. And so there was a lot more like styling and design to this place than there were to the others. And so that was a fun one to shoot. Beautiful little place. And I stayed at one of their Airbnbs that night, and I shot a lot of photos of that I never sent to them. And that's another, like, I have this really, really bad habit of shooting a bunch of photos that I never send to anybody. And that's a big problem. I'm sure I could be so much further along in my career if I could just share more of these images. And, you know, when I was in my early 20s and shooting photos and didn't have anything else to do, yeah, I did that all the time. Now I'm busy as hell. I got 2 kids. I feel like this is an excuse, you know, but I'm tired, you know, and I'm busy with my kids, and I got all sorts of stuff that I got to do for them, with them, for this house, for my wife, and for myself, you know. Maybe I want to decompress or something. So I don't produce and share as much as I would like to, and I want to give myself some grace for that, but I also know that I don't quite have the life that I want in this regard, in the photography business regard, because I don't work at it enough. And, I could spend less time playing video games or watching TV or something, I don't watch like traditional television that much. I watch a lot of YouTube, and I could watch a little less YouTube and spend more time putting stuff out there. And, part of me in the back of my brain is like, this time that you're spending right now shooting this video is time that you could be sharing some photos. But this is the thing that I really want to do and feel is important, and it matters to me, and I hope it matters to you. If you watch this for like however the hell long we've been recording, it must matter to you to some extent. What's that, 46 minutes? It must matter to you. I don't imagine most people are watching this long, but maybe years later somebody's watching this, whatever. It's more for me anyway. Okay, so now we're coming up on some of the most significant work of the year. So this is what's really funny, is I did a bunch of outreach to a bunch of people to try to get drum up work, and then eventually things started kind of popping off fairly late in the year. We're in September now, and Andrew Gates, who's an agent that works at Houlihan Lawrence, who works in I think he works at Houlihan Lawrence, the little corner of Connecticut and Massachusetts and upstate New York. And he lists a bunch of like pretty nice properties up there. He called me to shoot a not that big of a house, but this pretty cool house in Great Barrington, like up in the mountains of Massachusetts. It was this beautiful like cabin. This is on my website in the journal. You can look up. I don't know if I titled it the address, Home Road. Look up Home Road. You should see it on there. There are a bunch of photos that I shot in here that were a lot moodier that I really wanted to push out, but we got behind on this one, and I just had to like rush out some photos. So I have like 100 more photos of this place that I wish I had shared, but I didn't. It was one of the coolest houses that I'd seen. There were all these like timbers across the ceilings, and there were these fireplaces that were gorgeous. It was such a nice place, and I really enjoyed shooting that. Anyway, a few weeks later, Andrew calls me and has this like really huge, significant listing in Millbrook. And I gave him a price for it that turned out to be like too low. I'm sure I could have charged twice as much and gotten it, given the scope of work and how significant this place was. And a friend of mine who's a local photographer scolded me for this like a week ago. Sorry, Lawrence. And I should have talked to him, because apparently, no, I'm not going to get into that. Anyway, I shot it, and it was this huge estate in Millbrook, which is, upstate New York, Hudson Valley area. And it was gorgeous. It was this beautiful rolling estate with incredible views of the Catskill Mountains. And I had never seen anything like it. And what's really fun about it is that it was very much like an English estate, and it had all of this old style furniture in there, which I think was the same furniture. Like they maybe bought the house with this, or maybe it was there were old listing photos that had the same furniture, but I think that they had listed the house previously. Anyway, it was a really fun shoot because, again, it was so different from all of the like empty New York City apartments that I've shot for so much of my career. And so it was a really, really fun thing for me to photograph. And yeah, it was awesome. It was a gorgeous place. And it was co-listed with Michael Persaro, who's like a really big deal Douglas Elliman broker in New York City. And I've been trying to find a project to work on with him, but we haven't found something yet. He's only had like one listing in Manhattan since, and his budget for imagery there was not quite up to the kind of work that I want to be doing. And so we didn't meet up on that. Maybe later. That place was cool. And Andrew like had me shoot some portraits of him while we were there, which was also a fun little thing. And I haven't really done portraiture work in a while, so that was a fun little shoot. I have like a hidden page on my website of like a portrait portfolio, and I could maybe link to that here, or you can Google it. If you Google it, you might be able to find the page. If you type in like Nicholas Doyle portraits, you might be able to find that page. And I'd like to do more portrait work, but I'm not going to put it on my main portfolio and like muddy up my architecture work with it. That was fun. And then like a week or two later, Andrew had another place in Litchfield, Connecticut. And this place was amazing. It was like the way we described it is like it's a house out of a fairy tale. It's this beautiful farm with all of these outbuildings and all of this land and fields, but the house itself it's like multiple houses put together. Like there's this old stone house and there's this little bitty like stone hut, and then they're all connected with all of these other buildings, and it was so beautiful, and the light that day was so nice. And I got some of my like favorite photos that I've ever taken. There was one photo that I took, and it was a drone shot getting to sunset of like the corner of the house. That when I shot it, I liked it, and then when I was editing the photos, I stopped and looked at it, and I cried. I cried at how like absolutely beautiful it was. And the funny thing is, like, I don't know if that one's even on my portfolio, but it had that effect on me, and I really loved that, because I've only cried at like one other architecture photo, and that was one by Simon Devitt of a house in New Zealand. And then the other one was mine, and it was a real nice feeling. So that project will probably always feel pretty special to me because of that. Next significant project, I have lived here for 2 or 3 years now, and I know a local architect who I've been trying to work for, and finally I like ran into him and was like, I haven't got much going on. I really need to work on something. And he was like, we've got this building that we've been working on that normally for their like bigger work, they have Jeff Totoro, who's a pretty like, big deal architecture photographer based out of Philadelphia. They have him shoot their like really big projects, but then they've got all these smaller projects that are just like way out of the price range for Jeff Totoro. And he was like, hey, we can afford like X for this. And X was a lot less than Jeff Totoro's rates. And I was like, well, can you do like X plus 10, 20%? And they were like, okay, sure. And so we did like a fairly like budget project of shooting this little apartment complex in Trenton, New Jersey. And that was really fun because it's not that far away, and it was my first time exploring that part of Trenton, and it was really fun working with him, and that was really cool. And it was like the shortest commute that I've had all year, and so that was really nice. And it's a fun project. It was nothing to look at on the interior, to be honest, but shooting this little downtown Trenton scene was pretty cool on the exterior part of it, and we got some really nice sunrise and sunset shots of that, and I got some little video clips that I was really happy with that I, again, have not published anywhere. And so that was a pretty fun project. Looking back at the list, here's another fun one that came up. I joined the architecture subreddit some time ago, and I've been interacting there, like seeing mostly I see architects complaining about how they don't get paid enough. So I expect there's a lot of like junior architects spending time on Reddit there, just being like, damn, this sucks. And as I've talked to other like junior architects, they have been like, the pay is horrific. And that's really sad. It feels wrong, that they don't make enough money. I ended up talking to one later in the year who I think makes like $50,000 and lives in New York City. I can't remember what he said. I hope it was 70. I hope he said 70, but I think it was 50. And like $50,000 to live in New York City is not enough. It's not enough. That's what I made when I lived there, but I lived with with my girlfriend, who's now my wife. And so like, it's like scraping by, and so it's unfortunate. Architects should get paid more. I'm rallying for that. The work they do matters, and it affects our world. The structure of our world is built by architects. They should be paid more. So anyway, I did meet one person, or saw once a person post on there about how he had recently started his own firm in the Hudson Valley or upstate New York or something. So I sent him a direct message, and I was just like, hey, I'm an architecture photographer. I shoot in that area all the time. Let's chat. And after we talked back and forth for months and followed each other on Instagram and stayed in touch, eventually he had a project for me to shoot. And I went in October and shot this really cool house in Cornwall, like 5 minutes from Storm King. This beautiful black cabin in the woods. Oh, it was so nice. And it was like, it was done, but not furnished. There was like a bed upstairs, and that was like the only thing in the place. And there was stuff in the kitchen and like a one chair out on the porch or deck or whatever. But anyway, it was a really fun project, and I really liked it because Nils, if you're watching, and John, if you're watching, I love you guys. They're right around my age, and like really connected with them on, like, I ended up talking to the architect about playing Skyrim and Cyberpunk, and he had played both of those and really liked them. And talked to John about, it turns out he was like a fine art painter who got into contracting and ended up building stuff and ended up building this house, and works with Nils, who's an awesome architect. I love these guys. I really hope that we like keep working together for a long time, and I hope that I can find other clients like them that are just like dudes my age starting their own companies, that are fun to work with. And they also worked on a wine store, and so I came and I scouted that house. So I shot that for like 2 hours because the light was really nice, and I was like, we're gonna make this scout like part of the shoot, and maybe we'll end up with some of the final images here, which I think we did. I'll have to look back at the selects. But then we went to Paul Brady Wine in Beacon, New York, and we shot there for like maybe an hour while my clients like had a drink while I shot some stuff, and then we were all starving, and so we went and had dinner at Wild, which is this like, I had it confused with this like fast casual salad place, which is where I thought we were going, but instead we went to this really, really nice fine dining place, and we spent like 2 or 3 hours eating dinner and having a grand old time. And then we went back to the wine shop and shot at night, which was kind of the whole idea, was to shoot the wine store at night. And got like a nice little like twilight exterior and a couple of nice night photos inside the bar. And then the next day, we went and shot sunrise at the cabin, and shot sunrise into morning, and got a lot of like really beautiful shots there. And that was a half-day shoot, which is constrained to 6 photos unless people want to buy extra photos. That's like the setup that I have with my architecture stuff. The half days are 6, full days are 12. And they ended up, across those 2 projects, they ended up doing like, we finagled it a bit, and they did 5 photos of the wine shop and 7 photos of the cabin. And the photos that they selected are phenomenal. The place looks amazing. A friend of mine, Seth, if you're watching, said they were friggin' masterpieces, and that feels really nice to hear. And so pretty proud of those shots. And I'm even more proud that it was from an architect that I met on Reddit, And then there was another project for that local architecture firm that I shot the place in Trenton for. That was fun. And then here we're coming up to something that's really significant. One day I started looking at the people that were following me on Instagram stories, and I was like, who are the true fans here? Who are the people that are like consistently watching my stories on Instagram? Because these people must like really love what I'm about. And I saw that there was an architect in there that I had been like following back and forth for years. And I can't remember if we ever met in person. I'm sorry, Matt, you're not watching. There's no way Matt's watching this. He hasn't got time for this. Anyway, I messaged this architect and I was just like, hey, I've got a little bit of availability in December to take on one more client. Do you know anybody who's looking? And he was like, actually, I need something shot next week. Can you help me out? And I was like, absolutely. And so I ended up doing this like really nice architecture project for like a pretty sizable, there's like 4 or 5 people that work there, but a significant firm in New York City. Like he's super connected. He used to be the president of the AIA New York. I think that their firm is kind of a gateway that's going to get me a lot more into the New York architecture scene. And I got that job because I was like friends with him on Instagram for a few years, and I finally asked, like sort of indirectly, for work. I was like, do you know anybody? And he was like, yes, I need you, please come. And so I shot this project with one of his, one of the architects that works at his firm, and junior was the word I was looking for. I don't know what their official terms are. Anyway, met Josh. We shot the place. It was really nice. It's a beautiful place. And it was nice doing like a really formal architecture shoot. Because if you look back at what I talked about this year, I skipped over one architecture shoot that I did of an addition for a client. And I also scouted a house in Princeton for that same client. And so I did like a small architecture shoot early in the year, which I liked and I really enjoyed. And I'm looking forward to shooting this house when it's done next year. But this was the only other like architecture project. You'll notice that I talked about everything else was real estate photography. And, but this, well, the Neoteric, the Ottawa project, they're not architects, but they're designers. Like they design and build beautiful houses. And, but this was the first like actual like working for an architect project that I shot like all year. And this is like a pretty significant thing that I've called myself an architecture photographer for a really long time, but most of my clients have been builders or developers or in real estate. And so it's only just now, I think I've shot for like a handful of architects directly over the years. But now I'm starting to do more. And I feel like that's like a big turning point for my career. And like, all of the beach houses that I shot before that I got paid like the best I've ever paid for, those were for the builder. And then I licensed those for the architects, and that was excellent. That was, very good money. But shooting for the architects is what I really want, because they're the artists, and it's the artist hiring an artist to make art. And that is the dream for me. And so I consider this, the end of 2025, a huge success, because I'm starting to shoot for more architects. And that 2 of those architects, 2 of the most significant projects that I did this year, came from Instagram, from sending direct messages and following people. And so we're going to get to the other one in a minute. There was one more real estate shoot for the Upstate Curious people. That was a nice little house. It was beautiful. The design was really nice. But we're going to jump past it to go to the other architect that I met on Instagram, who builds really beautiful modern houses. I had shot this super modern house in Longport, New Jersey a couple of years ago, and I've been like looking for other modern architects, and I found one, Chaser, who builds really modern houses also in Longport, which seems to be developing a modern house scene, and perfect fit for me. And so we went back and forth talking a little bit, and he was pumped and loves my work. And I shot a place for him in early December. And that house was amazing. It's beautiful. It was a blast to shoot. He couldn't be there because he had to be elsewhere. But I really enjoyed shooting that. And then this was fun. That was only a half-day shoot. So I shot from sunrise until like 11 a.m. And then I decided to go around and look at all of the other houses that were being built that day and meet all the construction people that were around and gather up, leads for other work. And I found another house a couple blocks away from this one that looked amazing. This like radically ultra modern thing, and it was built by this construction company that I've heard of, but I haven't like gotten any connections with them yet. And then like a week later, I was talking to my client Chaser about that house, and it turns out that he's the architect for that one. And I was like, score! Like I'm already in on this house because it's like the architect is my client, and I'm hoping that he loves working with me. Seems like he likes it so far, and likes my work, and so I'm really looking forward to shooting that house. And then I saw some other houses under construction by other companies that I'd heard of, so I'm hoping to get a lot more established in the like South Jersey Shore scene. This is like all of these were in Longport, but Longport is a little section of a barrier island south of Atlantic City where like the Philadelphia rich have all their like beach houses. And this Longport specifically has a lot of like ultra modern houses. So that's the area that works for me. That really fits for me. Sorry, I banged the microphone. And that was the last like big shoot of the year. There was another shoot for Ye Tavern, the little like restaurant in the Graduate Hotel in Princeton. And then I shot an Airbnb for this goes back to the person, my contact at Upstate Curious, referred me to this person that had a house in Fleischmann's, New York, which is like deep in the Catskills. And I went up there and photographed that. We'd actually planned to shoot it sooner, but there were some issues getting coordinated for that. And it was going to be like they were going to pay me a little bit and then give me like a full weekend with my family at the place. But the coordination, the timing for that just like didn't work out. It's, going on a vacation with a 2-year-old and a 6-year-old. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work coordinating, getting your, moving your kids to another place. And it was going to be so much work for my wife to drive up there, like separate from me after I did the shoot, or for us to all go at the same time and me to try to shoot this place around the kids being there. The way that I work, I'm really absorbed in it and I really spend my time on it. I ended up going with my brother and I shot for like 4 hours, and that's on me, because that's the way that I tend to shoot. And like, could I shoot a place in 20 minutes? Sure, but it's not what I want to do. I want to spend my time making the art, and so it's much better for me to do it alone, or like my brother was like sitting on the couch watching a movie during it, whereas like my wife would have been in like one room watching the kids, and that would have been no fun. So we didn't do that. Anyway, that was the last shoot of the year, and now the last couple of weeks have been finishing up edits and dealing with, whatever my family needs, and getting ready for the new year. And come next week when the new year starts, I've got a lot of networking and outreach to do to try to build up more work. I went to some holiday parties at architecture firms and for the AIA New York, and that was really nice to get more involved in that scene and get out there in person and meeting people. In my early 20s, I was in the like Interior Design Society of New York group, and it never really panned out into any work. And maybe that's because it was interior design. Maybe it was because I was in my 20s. Whatever the case was, like nothing really happened there. But now I'm much more established, and the like architecture section is something that's a lot better fit for me. But I think that people take me a lot more seriously, probably just because of age, maybe. And maybe I just have a better air about me, more confidence in my work now, that I can just be like, I'm a photographer, and I don't even have to tell you that my work's good because you need to understand that it is. Anyway, so that's the list of all the major projects of the year. And I've been talking to you for an hour now, and this is the thing that my wife was like, nobody's going to be interested in this, and that could very much be the case. I did want to talk more about like my takeaways from the year, and I'm going to briefly breeze over some other stuff. So I went on 30 different photo walks, and the photo walks are like when I'm out somewhere with my camera wandering around taking photos. And I've wanted to do those as a like an organized like group activity. I've wanted to like lead photo walks and talk to people about photography and lead like workshops and stuff, but that's not something that I've got around to doing. But a lot of these were walks around New York City, but there are lots of other places that I walked. 25 in transit photo sessions. So I have a sort of personal project that I'm working on. Whenever I'm on the train or bus or something like that, I like to photograph that journey. And I've thought about making that into posts on Substack or a zine or a series of photo books or something like that. And so I shot a ton of those last year, but I never shared any of those photos. And so that's something that I would like to work on. But again, it's on the back burner until there's more money in the bank. I shot 25 different restaurants for like personal work, just like stuff that I was out at. Most of those were coffee shops, and several of them were like, it was several trips to La Cabra, either La Cabra in Brooklyn or La Cabra in Soho. And that's a very nice coffee shop. I made lots of videos this year, some for clients, a lot of YouTube videos that I never shot, I never posted. I sold one fine art print. I sold one photo this year, and it was to a friend of mine. And he chose one size because his budget was like $100. And I was like, hey, if you can give me like a little bit more, we can print it like 24 by 36. And he was like, yeah, let's do it. And so we ended up with a 24 by 36 print of my koi, Tide Pools koi, which is like the most popular print that I have. And he said that he had it framed at a shop in Nashville, and the lady at the shop loved it. And I've been meaning to reach out to that lady at the shop to see if she wanted to like, sell some more of them. But again, another thing that's just like, I didn't make time for it. I wanted to keep track of how many bowls of ramen I made and photographed this year, but I didn't. I'm sure it's in like the many, many double digits. And I made a list of the gear that I bought this year. The most significant is the DJI Mini 5 Pro drone. I crashed my Mavic 2 on one of those projects really late in the year. Turns out DJI is not doing repairs right now, so I needed another drone like immediately. I borrowed one from my brother-in-law, which was the Mini 2, which was really nice, and I bought the Mavic 5 Pro, which is what I shot that house in Longport with, and I love it. It's phenomenal. Huge upgrade. Other upgrade is the iPhone 16 Pro Max, which is really nice. I really like that. I've been using the No Fusion app to take photos, and I really love the photos out of that. I don't like them as much as the photos from the XH2. Like, that's not a fair comparison. For a camera that's in my pocket, it's great. I bought a little Godox, a little tiny Godox flash for when I was shooting some of those apartments, and I used it one time. And I keep shooting those things, and I was like, I should really buy one of these. And then I bought it, and then I shot like one more apartment, and I haven't shot any more apartments since then. So isn't that how that goes? I bought a Honda CRV. We needed a second car so that I could go out and do work. So that's been amazing. That's been a game changer. I wouldn't be doing all of these upstate New York projects if I didn't have a car. So like before that, it would be like I would ride the train to New York City, or I would use the car, our family car, to go do a project and then be done by the time I had to pick up the kids. Now I have another car. It's old, but it's awesome. And it has enabled me to get to a lot of projects I couldn't have gotten to otherwise. And this isn't necessarily work related, but we bought one of those Burley Bee like kid trailers for our bicycle off like Facebook Marketplace, and that has been awesome riding the kids around in that. I talked about how I went to some of those events with the AIA and the architecture firms. I also went to a thing called BizNow with a friend of mine who's a real estate attorney. We'll call him that. BizNow is like a commercial real estate networking event, and that was pretty cool. I'd like to do some more of those and see if they pan out to something. They're really expensive. They're like $100 to $200 per event. I went to the Build New York like construction trade show, and that was good networking. I'm going to do that again this coming year. I went to the Atlantic City builders convention. That's for like New Jersey builders. That was pretty cool. Nothing panned out from that, but I'm going to try it again this year. Keep showing my face until I get known. And I forgot about this. I flew to St. Louis this year for this like crazy fool errand where that friend who's the real estate attorney wanted a cat that his sister, who's a vet in a little town outside of St. Louis, had. And to be fair, like, she knows the pets and she's like, this cat rules. And he was like, I want it. And he was trying to find a way to get it flown out here and it wasn't working. And I happened to pop into his office that day being like, I need some work. And I overheard this talk about this cat and they couldn't figure it out. And I was like, I'll go. I'll fly to St. Louis and get the cat. And he was like, hell yeah. And so that's what I did. I went to St. Louis. It was really funny. I went to that BizNow networking event in the morning. I wandered around Liberty City Park and shot photos. I flew to St. Louis. I shot the arch and a park there with some cool lighting. And I reached out to the lighting designer who lit the arch and that park and talked to her a little bit. She was pretty cool. And then the next day I drove down and picked up this cat. Cat's real cool. And then I checked out Forest Park in St. Louis, which I believe was an Olmsted designed park. It was gorgeous. And I was like, I wish I had more time to spend here. But it was literally like I drove around and I was like, that's cool. Let me take a photo. And I drove to another spot. That's cool. Let me take a photo. And I was like, and I drove to the airport and flew back. And I gave him the cat. And it was a gift for his wife, and she like loved it to death. And then months and months later, he gives me a call and is like, "Hey, the cat that you picked up, we love her to death, but she's not getting along with our other cat. I wonder if you'd be willing to take her." And so I was like, I'm not sure about this. Let me call my wife. And I called my wife, and she was just like, yes, I want the cat. And so now we've got a kitten, and she's a new little part of our life. And can I come out in just a minute? And that's my wife checking in, which means that I have recorded for more than long enough, and I think that I've gone over pretty much everything that I wanted to talk about here. It was the first part of the year was really tough, and I did everything I could to market and reach out and meet new people to work with, and it's started to bear some fruit, and I just have to keep at it and do more networking and more marketing and more outreach to pick up more work. And so that is what I'm going to be doing going into 2026. I recorded a couple of videos about how there's that success that I had with Instagram, and I think I could be really intentional in how I use it going forward, of making sure that I reach out to the right people and post the right amount and at the right times, and be really, really specific in how I use it, and then start to save up a little money so that I can start doing paid advertising on it, because I think that's going to be a real big unlock. And so I'm sure when I get there, that'll be great. Anyway, that was 2025 for me. It was a big year. It's, slow, rocky start and some really, really, really awesome stuff towards the end. And so I'm really pumped about 2025, and I'm really pumped for what 2026 is going to bring in terms of the growth in my architectural photography career. So thanks so much for watching and spending this time with me and learning a little bit about what I'm up to. Let's look forward to having a really awesome 2026 together. So I'll see you later. Bye-bye.